Greetings and welcome to the Culinary Arts course. Unit 4 will be understanding on stocks, sauces and soups. So in this session, we'll be understanding on different types of stocks, that is, the classifications of stock, their usage in different culinary purpose, ingredients used in stocks, and the method of preparations of the different types of stock that we'll be going to study in today's session. So before we start, let's understand what exactly is a stock or the definition of a stock. Now, in culinary term, if you're using a term called as a stock is nothing but it is a most flavorful liquid that is obtained by simmering the bones of a meat. When I say bones of a meat, it can be a red meat, it can be a game meat, it can also be a poultry meat, or it can also be a sea fish or a sea fish products, like even a fish bones as well. So it is basically a flavorful liquid which is obtained by simmering the bones of a meat and certain vegetables. For example, vegetables are like onion and carrot, leek, and certain herbs and spices like parsley, bay leaf, cloves, peppercorn. So when we add all these ingredients together, we get a very flavorful liquid called as a stock. I'll repeat again. So what is a stock? Stock is a most flavorful liquid. Okay. So this liquid is obtained by the bones of the meat. Now, why do we use the bones rather than the meat? Is because bone has a bone marrow in them. So this bone marrow gives a more flavor to the liquid as more compared to the meat, because the meat has a lot of fat content in them. So stock is something where we do not want a fat content. We just need a flavor of the water. That's it. So in that region, we always take out the excess meat that is stuck to the bone, and we only use the bone part of the meat. So this meat includes, it can include any wild hunted meat. It can also be a poultry like chicken, goose, turkey, or it can also be a red meat like beef, pork. It can also be a meat obtained from fish, that is, can be sea fish, fish bones, and there's certain vegetables that has to be added. These vegetables includes onion, because onion gives out a good flavor. Garlic, it again has a good flavor in them. Leek, leek actually balance out the flavor, and certain herbs like parsley, bay leaf, and certain spices like cloves and cinnamon is widely used in the preparation of the stock, so that the liquid becomes more flavorful, and it is actually cooked minimum for 45 minutes to maximum it can go up to 8 hours, more than 8 hours, to extract the maximum flavor of these ingredients, and it can be used for the further process. Now, where exactly is the stock used? Stock is one of the major first mise en place that has to be done in the kitchen for any preparations. For example, if you're making a soup, instead of adding a plain water, if we add this flavorful stock water or a liquid, the flavor of the stock or the flavor of the soup becomes more rich. So when you're adding a plain water, it doesn't have much flavor. Similarly, when you're adding a stock, it contains maximum flavor, so it increases the taste and it also enhances the flavor in the food. So we use it in the soup. Apart from soup, sauce is one of the most important culinary preparations, especially in continental uh, cuisine. So stock, it can be a sauces for your beef steak, or it can be sauces for your poultry, roasted, grilled meat, any meat. The sauce goes as an accompaniment. Again, sauce has to be more flavorful. To enhance the flavor of the sauce, instead of using a plain liquid, we always use the stock. Again, it's a most flavorful liquid, so it basically enhances the flavor. Apart from that, it can also be used in certain gravies in Indian preparations, and it can be also used in much more other preparations, like if you want to make some thickening agent, soup, or if you want to make some sauces. This stock is one of the most important preparations in the kitchen. So Just like how we cut certain vegetables before we start cooking, just like how we cut the meat based on the preparations that we want, similarly stock is again a very important liquid that has been prepared for the further preparations. So what does the stock includes? Stock includes, again, it only includes the bones of a meat, it includes vegetables, it includes certain herbs for aromatic flavors and spices, which is cooked minimum for 45 minutes to maximum it can extend to 8 hours, and so that is where to extract the maximum flavor out of these vegetables, and then this flavorful liquid is used. Whenever we're making a stock, we do not boil it rapidly. We keep it in a very low flame so that these water is being simmered for a longer duration. So when the water is simmered for a longer duration, maximum flavors can be extracted. Even the nutrition value that has been present can also be extracted from these ingredients. So this is what is a stock. To read out the definition, now the stock is a most flavorful liquid prepared by, again, the method of preparation is simmering meaty bones, only the bones of the animals, and also from the meat, poultry, seafood, or even the vegetables. Just like how you, if you want to make a vegetarian soup, if you want to make complete veg meal or veg soup or veg sauce, we can eliminate the meat and only the vegetables can be used. Again, to be precise, not every vegetable is suitable for making a stock. Certain vegetables includes, mandatorily you should have onion, garlic, carrot, and leek. So these four major vegetables which enhances and gives more flavor, and it also makes it more aromatic. So for that we use certain herbs and spices, and it has been cooked for a longer period of time, where this flavorful liquid can be used for further process like soup, sauces, stew. Okay, when we're making a chicken stew, or when we're making a Irish stews and all, this stock can be used. And it is also used for many other preparations, like if you want to boil the rice, we can also again use this flavorful liquid so that it kind of gives out the flavor in there. So this is what is the stock. Now, the basic ingredients that is used for making a stock. So the basic ingredients, as you can see in the picture here, carrot, leek, onion is mandatory. Now, when it comes to spices, we have parsley, bay leaf, we have peppercorns, we also have a little bit of thyme that has been added. Now, this is basically a preparation of veg. Now, when you're making any like chicken soup, or when you're making a chicken stew, or when you're making a sauce for the chicken or beef or any poultry or meat, then we should always add the bones of the meat, because bones basically has a lot of flavor. The flavor comes from the bone marrow that is accumulated inside these bones. That is why we use a lot of bones rather than a meat. Okay. Now, this cutting of the vegetables, now what kind of a cutting is required for using in the stock? So these cuttings, there is a term that is used in culinary that is called as mirpwa. It is spelled as Mirepoix. It's called as mirpwa. So mirpwa is nothing but the roughly cut of vegetables which can be used for the preparation of the stock. I'll repeat again, it's called mirupwa. So mirupwa is nothing but it's a roughly cut. There is no any precise method or precise size of the cut. Any roughly chopped of the vegetables which is used for the preparation of stock, because only the liquid is extracted. We don't take the vegetables. So any roughly chopped of vegetables is which is used for the stock. The term is called as mirupwa. And sometimes to enhance the flavor of the stock, they use wine. It can be white wine for making a white stock. It can be a red wine to make a red stock. And sometimes they also add tomatoes to give a tangy flavor in these sauces and stocks. They're often prepared and by using a leftover vegetables or leftover ingredients, because when we use as leftover vegetables, you can reduce the cost effective and you can extract the maximum flavors from it. Now, whenever we're using the bones of a meat, we should always start with a high quality of ingredients. Do not compromise on low quality. Now, for sure, in Indian cuisine, you know, drank the bone soup, what we make, right? We can make chicken soup, which we take bones of the soup is being cooked for a longer time, or we can take the mutton soup, or different other soups that we drink. Similarly, why do they use bone is because the flavors can be extracted. Similarly, use the bones of a younger animal, because when you're using a bones of bones from a very older animal, what happens, the bones is not that tender, it will be very hard, and extracting a flavors from that would be a very long time. So in order to that, take a tender meat and take a young animals which can be used for the preparation of the stocks, and also cut the bones into a very smaller piece. Just do not directly add it in the water. Crush the bone with lightly so that the bone marrow is being exposed to the water, and you can get out the maximum flavors from it. And do not use any meat in the sense, do not use any flesh, because the flesh is always uh, it is attached to the fat content. So when you're adding a fat content to the sauce, any liquid, what happens when the liquid is boiling, you can see a fat droplet that has been floating on top of the stock. So when you're using for further preparation, it can be overpowering, and you can find that kind of fat floating on top. In order to avoid that, we have to always eliminate the flesh of the meat inside these stocks, and you can only use the bones. And when you're using a fish bones are very small and very tender. So maximum of 20 to 40 minutes of boiling or simmering is more than enough. Okay. And always use the vegetables. The maximum vegetables that you require is onion, carrot, and leek, herbs and spices. Do not overpower it. Now, how do we use these vegetables in the stock? We do not add them directly in the water. We make a sachet. What do you mean by sachet? We make a small pottery with using a muslin cloth, or even especially a muslin cloth or a cooking cloth, where we add these herbs and spices. We tie it up, we wrap it up, we make it into sachet, and then we drop it in the stock, because when we're extracting the liquid, we don't want the herbs to be remaining there. After some time, the herbs and spices is taken out, so that not max so that these herbs and spices should not overpower the flavor of the stock. So hence it should be very easy to take it out. We make it into a pottery bag, or we make it into a sachet, and only then we add it inside the liquid, that is to make a stock, so that it will be easy for us to remove it out. And always use dominant vegetables like tomatoes, mushrooms and fennels, and even onion and garlic and carrot, because they give out the maximum flavors in it. And avoid using too much of small pots. Whenever you're making a stock, take a large vessels, so that the water vapor is not easily escaped. And always simmer it, do not boil it, because when you boil it, you don't get the maximum flavor. Always keep it in a simmering condition. Close the lid so that the vapor itself falls back inside the stock and it becomes more flavorful. Next one, always use a basic mise en place preparations. Just like how we keep all the ingredients ready before we cooking, stock is again a basic mandatory mise en place that has to be kept ready before any preparations, especially in continental cuisine. Now this liquid, the water, now what kind of a liquid will you use? Water is one of the major ingredient or major liquid that is used for making a preparation of the stock. Whenever you're using water and adding this mirupua, that is the vegetables, and whenever you're adding the herbs and spices or bones, do not add it when the water is boiling. Always start with the cold water. So first you collect the water in a pot, you keep it on the range, do not turn on the stove, do not turn on the range. Add all the ingredients and then turn it on. So from the time it turns from cold water to hot water, the flavors can be extracted to the maximum. Next, once the first liquid of the stock is being taken, now when you want to again you feel the bones is not flavors of the bones is not being extracted well, again add the cold water, add extra vegetables, and again you can heat it up. Now this process where you're extracting the second time of the stock, that is the time you again using the water, again using the same ingredients for again extracting the maximum flavor of the thing, using for the second time, this is called as remoulage. Okay, what is remoulage? It's nothing but you're extracting again the flavor to the liquid for the second time. After you take the first extract of the flavor, Again, the remaining ingredients, when you add the liquid, again you heat it up. That is the term we use it as a rebouillage. So now let's understand the classifications of these stocks. Now this stock is being classified into 4 types. Okay, now what are these 4 types? It's a basic stock that is always there in any hotel that you go. These 4 stock is widely prepared. First one is the white stock, brown stock, fish stock, and vegetable stock. In the French term, the white stock is called fond. The stock in French term is called as fond, and for the white you call it as blanc. Okay, for white you call it as blanc, so it's called fond blanc, and for the brown stock you call fond pure because it's brown burn, and then for the fish stock in French term, it's called as poisson. So you take it as fond poisson. And then for the vegetable, and again in French term, it's called as legume. So you take fume de legume, or fond de legume, or fume de legume. It's nothing but your vegetable stock. Now this stock is being further classified. Now this white stock can be used for various preparations. Like for example, the white stock is basically used for white meat. Like for example, it is used for making a preparations of lamb, poultry, veal, or even vegetables. Brown stock is again basically used for the meat preparations, and vegetable stock is used for vegetable preparations, and fish stock is basically used for making a sauces or soup for the fish preparations. So say simultaneously, these stocks are also being classified. For example, when you eat chicken, the color of the chicken meat after it has been cooked, it is white in color. So you use white stock. Now, when you make beef or when you make mutton, the color of the meat of this is basically red to brown color after it has been cooked. So you use brown stock. To make a fish preparation, you use fish stock. To make a vegetable preparations, you use the vegetable stock. So based on the color of the vegetables and meat and the flavor, the stock is also being classified accordingly. Now, this is the classifications of the stocks. Next one is we'll go in further about what are these each stocks. First one is the white stock. So this white stock is also called as fond blanc. It is made from the white meat. So what are the white meat? Chicken meat or any bird meat, poultry meat, they're basically white in color. Or sometimes you can also use veal meat or basically a chicken, and apart from that vegetables are also added in it, and these bones or the meat are put in a cold water along with the vegetables, along with the spices, and then it is being brought to a boiling time. So it's a rule number 1 that you have to always follow whenever you're making a stock. Add all the ingredients inside the liquid and only then turn on so that you can extract the maximum flavor from this. Now the mixture is basically reduced to simmer to finish the cooking. This type of stock is basically used for making any poached dishes. It is also used for making certain sauces and certain soups. Preferably if you're making chicken stew, soups, or based on that, you use these stocks. Now the method of preparation for the white stock is very simple. You take a meat that can be a veal meat, that is a calf. You can also take chicken meat. It is required. So for example, you take a proportion, there is a ratio for it. You cut the meat, you add it in the cold water, you add the spices like peppercorns, you add the herbs like bay leaf and thyme, you add the vegetables. Vegetables includes onion, carrot, leek. So always remember this: onion, carrot, leek. You have to add these 3 vegetables along with celery, that is again a herb, and then you turn it, add everything in the cold water, and then you cover it, bring it to a boil, and then slowly simmer for at least. Now when you're making a white stock, you have to at least cook it for or simmer it for 5 to 6 hours so that you can extract as much as flavor from it. Pass through the strainer because we don't want the bones to be used in certain sauce or soups, so we only need the liquid. So you pass through the strainer, collect the stock. If you want to preparation, you can use the stocks, or if you want to use it for your further usage, you can always refrigerate it and then you can use it when and then. So this is how you make a white stock. Next one is the brown stock. Now, this brown stock is basically it is obtained from the brown meat. So it's as similar preparation like how you make a white stock, just that you're using a bones made from the red meat. So that now what you do a brown stock is that instead of directly adding the bones to the liquid, you have to roast or you have to fry or roast. Basically, you have to bake this or roast it, these brown meat inside the oven for at least 1 hour until the meat and turns into nice brownish in color, and you're going to add tomato puree in it so that you get an amazing flavor from it, and also the color of the stock can become brown in color. So you're adding two extra addition. First one, you're going to roast the bones. Second one, bones and vegetables. The second one, you're also adding additional tomato puree to these stocks so that you can extract the flavors from these. So this is what is the brown stock is being made. It's very similar, but ensure that you don't burn out the meat so that you get a burnt flavor in the stock. Just you're going to roast it until the meat, until the bones and the marrow turns into brownish in color. You're also going to roast the vegetables slightly, and you're also going to add the additional of tomato puree in order to increase the flavor. And again, you're going to give the color of the brown. So once the bone has been heated up, once it has been nicely roasted, then you add it in the cold water along with the vegetables, along with the tomato puree, and then you heat it up. Now this heating time, it can actually go up to, it can, you have to at least for making a brown stock, you have to extract the flavor. So at least you're going to make it for 8 to 10 hours. You're going to simmer it. So you're going to simmer it for this liquid to 8 to 10 hours so that you get amazing flavors, amazing liquid. Then again, you can cool it down and then store it in the refrigerator. When you're making a vegetable stock, here there's no bones of the meat is used. You're just using the herbs. You're using carrot, leek, onion. You're also using certain garlic and mushrooms to extract the flavor from it. And then you're adding certain herbs and spices. Again, you add it in the cold water, then bring it to boil. So just as vegetable stock, you can cook it from minimum 30 to 45 minutes, and then you can again strain it out, cool down the liquid, and use it for the further usage. When you're making a fish stock, always the fish stock, since the fish gets cooked very fast as compared to any meat, the minimum time that is required to cook a fish is somewhere between 15 to 20 minutes is more than enough. So here you take out the bones of the fish and then head of the fish especially, and then you add it in the cold water, add the vegetables, that is mirupua, add the bouquet garnia, that is potly of the spices and herbs. Herbs can include from celery, bay leaf, to thyme. Okay, and then you're going to add all these, and then you're going to add it in the cold water, and you can minimum cook it for 45 minutes as the same timer for the vegetable stock, and then you're going to strain it out, store this liquid for the further usage. This is how you're going to make a fish stock. So here on the next class, we will discuss on what are the cooking of stocks, what are certain rules that has to be followed when you're cooking these stocks, and also the difference between making a stock and how you have to exactly extract the flavors from it. We will also be understanding about certain culinary terms that is used in kitchen to make out certain sauces and the stocks. So we'll also go through the tips that has to be used to improve the flavors in the stocks. So this one we will continue in the next chapter. Thank you.